Okay, here we go. This is going to be on TV in the rooms here. You got to get this right. You understand? This is big time stuff. Big time stuff here. Can hear you perfect. And we're ready to go.
Mike was born September 22, 1947 in Shelbyville, Indiana. A Midwestern boy to his core, Mike grew up in Dayton, Ohio, and attended The Ohio State University, where he earned a degree in public recreation, competed in gymnastics, and became a diehard Buckeyes fan. In 1970, Mike joined the U.S. Army and was assigned to the 82nd Airborne Division as a paratrooper. While in the Army, Mike not only served his country, but also taught ballroom dancing. A strong lead on the dance floor, Mike brought joy and energy whenever he broke out his impressive ballroom skills. After his enlistment ended, Mike first found work as a salesman. His true calling came, though, when he discovered how well he could do at playing poker, and he took up that game professionally in 1977. In 1985, Mike's love of the game inevitably brought him to Las Vegas. Just 4 years later, in 1989, he won the coveted World Series of Poker bracelet in the $1,500 7-card stud event. In 1998, long before the poker craze that grew into today's industry, Mike took a page from the PGA and masterminded the WSOP Invitation-Only Tournament of Champions, featuring Poker's Elite, one of his proudest achievements. In 2001, Mike became an original co-founder of Party Poker, an enterprise that has stood the test of time and remains one of the top online poker sites in the world today. A year later, Mike started his career with the World Poker Tour.
Welcome to the debut of the World Poker Tour.
With his can-do spirit, Mike was more than a commentator, playing a major role in convincing casinos to take a chance on the newly formed WPT.
We have a sensational group of 6 finalists for you here today. What a great way to start the season on the World Poker Tour.
When the World Poker Tour premiered with the WPT 5 Diamond World Poker Classic at the Bellagio,
The game is no limit hold'em. It's a game that takes a minute to learn and a lifetime to master.
Mike and fellow commentator Vince Van Patten changed the poker world forever with their patented blend of friendly banter and deep poker knowledge.
Niagara Falls, Ryan Rivers doesn't get some help here, Vince. He's going over the falls in a barrel.
This unlikely partnership would grow into a deep friendship founded on respect, admiration, and affection. In 2005, Mike published his first book, Shuffle Up and Deal. In 2006, Mike masterfully won the WSOP Tournament of Champions for $1 million, defeating the 2-time WPT champion Daniel Negreanu heads up. True to his giving nature, he donated half of his $1 million purse to charity, including the Bonaconti Fund to Cure Paralysis, a cause he continued to generously support for many years. Similarly, along with Linda Johnson, Jan Fisher, and Lisa Tenner, Mike created PokerGives.org, a non-profit organization providing poker players a dedicated platform for philanthropy.
I've been interviewed many times during my career, and one question a lot of times they ask is, who do you think is the most respected person, or who do you like most as a poker player? And my answer is always the same, Mike Sexton. He is the man.
In 2008, Mike received the greatest gift of all, his son Ty. Mike's love for Ty brought a new and meaningful dimension to his life. As a devoted father, Mike loved cheering Ty on at baseball games and proudly shared photos at the table of Ty and their treasured moments together. Ty was truly his world. Later that year, Mike reached a career milestone when he was inducted as the 39th member of the Poker Hall of Fame. In 2016, Mike published Life's a Gamble, a poker autobiography spanning his 4 decades in the defining game of his life. In November of the same year,
Mike with the ladies? Yes, I call.
Mike reached his 3rd of 4 WPT final tables and won WPT Montreal main event,
Deuce and diamonds, it's over! We've done it!
besting a field of 648 entries to win nearly $318,000 and making him officially a WPT champion.
Let's hear it one more time for the great Mike Sexton.
Unsurprisingly, he gave his championship belt to Ty. With 15 career cashes in WPT tournaments totaling nearly $1 million, Mike is ranked 216th overall in WPT earnings and 39th in WPT final table appearances. In total, Mike amassed more than $6.7 million in live tournament winnings. In 2017, after 15 landmark seasons with the World Poker Tour, Mike left to rejoin Party Poker as their chairman, closing out a career with WPT that remains a huge part of his legacy in the industry.
So let's shuffle up and deal.
That same year, Mike was named a recipient of the WPT Honors,
I'm extremely humbled and honored to be receiving this award.
the WPT's highest distinction awarded to members of the poker industry in celebration and appreciation of exceptional contributions made to the World Poker Tour and the poker community as a whole. In July, the WPT renamed its iconic WPT Champions Cup the Mike Sexton WPT Champions Cup in honor of Mike's unparalleled influence on the organization and the poker world. To his friends, Mike was known as a humble man and a kind and generous soul. Never without a smile on his face and always game for a new adventure, Mike was never too busy to share a laugh, stop, take a picture with a fan, or, a fact to which many of his friends can attest, take your money on the golf course.
They might only bet $1, $2, or lunch, or beers, but everybody gambles on the golf course. That's the fun of it.
And Mike was a storyteller extraordinaire. There was nothing he loved more than joyfully regaling eager listeners with boisterous tales from his days coming up in poker, when he was seated at the table with legends like his good friends Doyle Brunson, Amarillo Slim, Puggy Pearson, Chip Reese, and Stu Unger, at whose funeral Mike spoke and served as pallbearer. A larger-than-life personality whose infectious energy, enthusiasm, and pure love of the game bowled you over when he entered the room. Mike leaves an outsized legacy on and profound hole in the poker world. Everybody who was lucky enough to know Mike will always remember him fondly as a jubilant, once and forever, first ambassador of poker. One thing that we know is this industry, this wonderful thing that has brought us all together. We're only going to experience it for so much time. Soon we'll be gone, we will stop, we'll get older, we will not be there. Next generation will come, and the fact that we could come together, celebrate those wonderful people like Mike, who have made so much of a contribution, that we can stop and just say, by the grace of God, we had a moment where we all came together, and that we will never stop appreciating just how wonderful that together we made each other feel.
Till next time, may all your cards be live and your pots be monster.
Welcome. Tonight, we have thousands of people united across the planet in this very moment to celebrate on his birthday the remarkable life of Mike Sexton. My name is Lynn Gilmartin, and I had the honour of working alongside Mike on the World Poker Tour for many years. Now, while I and most of the people here know Mike from his influence in poker, he had many extraordinary parts to his life. And whether you connected with Mike through family, poker, golf, the military, dance, Ohio State, one thing we all know him for unanimously is his storytelling. We will always remember him for his stories, and boy did he have stories. Now, Mike's wish for tonight was for all of us to be together and to share our stories. And stories about Mike are naturally full of joy and the inspiration and the humanity that he brought to all of us. And most importantly, he wanted us to be smiling and laughing and celebrating his life. He asked for us not to cry, so let's see how that goes. Now, knowing that we can't include every story in this ceremony, Mike's dear friend Matt Savage will be hosting an open conversation with friends after we conclude here. We'll have more info on that later, so you can participate by sharing a story of your own or simply sitting back and enjoying the tales of Mike Sexton. Now to begin, please join me in welcoming Adam Pliska.
Good evening. I'm Adam Pliska. On behalf of the hundreds of World Poker Tour employees, over the last 2 decades, I'm honored to be joining you here tonight to celebrate the extraordinary life of Mike Sexton. I'm here in Las Vegas at the home of the WPT final table, and behind me are photos of life on the road with Mike. For many, Mike Sexton will always be the most iconic poker commentator the world has ever known. But for the WPT family, he was more. He was friend, father, mentor, innovator, and moral compass. He's also the reason that many of us will look back at our time on the World Poker Tour as some of the fondest memories of our lives. Now, Mike had no shortage of accomplishments, but tonight I'd like to focus on just 3 life lessons of the many that Mike taught us. I'm sure they'll resonate with you, and they'll run through a number of the stories that you're going to hear tonight. The first is Mike believed in enjoying the journey. Whether he was playing for $1 million, participating in an impromptu golf game in China, taking his son Ty out to a scouting outing, or, as I witnessed, Mike and Vince flying 3,000 miles in a plane, getting off the plane and immediately starting a prop bet of whose luggage was going to come out of the carousel first, Mike Sexton always looked for the fun and the good in life, and that spirit was infectious. Those of us who had the privilege of traveling the world with this splendid man followed his lead, and our lives have been forever enhanced because of it. Next, Mike showed us the virtue of making other people feel special. It didn't matter if this was the first time you'd been at a poker game, or you were a WPT champion, or a waiter in a restaurant. When you were in the presence of Mike Sexton, you felt like you were the most important person in the world. When he talked to you, you were the only person in the room. And when he listened, you felt like your opinion mattered. This is because Mike Sexton instinctively understood what it takes many of us years to realize, that life is precious, that each conversation, smile, or exchange is a chance to engage in a simple communion of kindness. We all felt a little bit more valued and a little bit more special because of Mike. And finally, Mike showed us whatever you do, do it with laughter. Laugh long and deep so that tears emerge from your eyes and your stomach shakes when you do, and laugh at that too. Tell some good jokes, tell some bad ones while you're at it as well. But whatever you do, laugh at yourself, not just in your tales of achievement, but also in your misfortunes, which often can be the source of some of the greatest stories that you'll tell for the rest of your life. And those of you who've witnessed the infamous WPT roast, you can attest Mike had no equal, whether roastor or roastee. There he taught us to humorously talk trash like only a great competitor can do, but in a manner that implicitly conveyed the gentle sentiment that he loved you. Because to Mike Sexton, every moment was worthy of a celebration, and every laugh a testament to the joy of life. And so let's follow Mike's directives to enjoy this journey that we've been given, to take the time that we've been afforded to elevate others, and to laugh from the depths of our heart. Accordingly, I'd like to offer you this passage from The Little Prince by de Saint-Exupéry, whose words seem most fitting, and in my mind, seem as if they could have been uttered from Mike himself. You alone will have the stars as no one else has them. In one of them, I will be living. In one of them, I will be laughing. And so it will be as if all the stars are laughing. When you look at the sky at night, you alone will have the stars that can laugh. Please join me now in a moment of silence for poker's North Star, Mike Sexton.
Hello, everybody. I'm Jeff Sexton. It's an honor to be able to represent the Sexton family in this wonderful celebration. And I want to express our deep appreciation to everybody at the World Poker Tour and Party Poker who've been such an important part of Mike's life. It was 2003, and I was living in Hong Kong working at the United States Consulate when I got an email from one of my State Department colleagues who loved to play poker. And it was a link to a website for a new program called the World Poker Tour on the Travel Channel. Do you know this guy, Mike Sexton? He asked. Do I know him? I said. He's my brother. Well, came the reply, he's a celebrity now. Well, for the Sexton family, Mike has always been a celebrity. But more importantly, he's always been a model and hero. Let all of us tell you why. First, when we were kids, nobody was more fun to be around than Mike and his older brother, Tom. After our father, Ray Sexton, and their mother, Gloria, divorced, Mike and Tom used to visit us every summer and during school breaks. You cannot believe what a sensation those two created. It was like the circus came to town. Every kid in the neighborhood would show up at our house to watch the show. Acrobatics, tumbling, handstands, juggling, clowning around, and then joined in the games they organized. Baseball, basketball, ping pong, pool sports, hide and seek, marathon board games, and anything else that generated excitement and fun. Nobody cared more for his family than Mike. Sister Steph recalls the special role Mike played in her life, calling him her hero for his love, support, loyalty, and compassion toward his family. Sister Lonnie talks about the extraordinary efforts Mike made to connect with family by coming to so many celebrations, weddings, graduations, dance recitals. Kent and Kim talk about their uncle always showing up and being available for a chat, no matter how busy his schedule was. Niece Rachel speaks of her gratitude for the crucial support he gave her in her quest to become a professional cellist. All those years of practicing with siblings and nieces and nephews and friends prepared Mike well for his journey as a father. Mike often said that the happiest day of his life was the day that his son Ty was born. Nobody was kinder than Mike. Niece Marilyn talks about how Mike radiated good-heartedness in all his dealings with people. His nephew Miles recalls being with Mike when they stopped at a drive-thru and the harried cashier messed up their order. Mike asked the cashier, very diplomatically, to recheck it, adding, "Hey, you're doing a great job," at which point the cashier started beaming. I think all of us would agree Mike was a model for how people should treat others. Nobody created special moments better than Mike. Niece Ashley recalls how Mike always found a way to bring people together and make them smile, even when the circumstances were difficult, as he did at her grandmother's funeral when Mike rented a limousine so the family could ride in it together rather than drive separately, giving all of them a chance to share stories, create memories, and smile in the midst of pain. Despite all his celebrity, nobody was more down to earth than Mike. Mike summarized his philosophy of life to Kim and Kent by saying, "I promise you, the happiest people dance and have a dog." Whatever heights of success and celebrity he reached, Mike remained a regular guy. Meatloaf, mac and cheese, and beer were the best things in life to him. Nobody was more loyal than Mike. As Lonnie points out, Mike had the most extensive Ohio State wardrobe of anyone, anywhere. Every trip to Ohio meant a trip to the Buckeye Corner store to make sure everyone who was with him was wearing OSU gear. He shared many happy times supporting the football and gymnastics teams. Nobody was a more formidable yet friendly competitor than Mike. As Brother Rodney describes it on the golf course, no matter how small the bet or how far behind he was, Mike would stay focused until he put the match away on the 18th green by sinking a 10-foot putt. In typical Mike style, the victory was, as he liked to say, as easy as pie. Niece Shauna says that despite being crushed every time, she loved playing ping pong with Mike. On one occasion, when she was able to even up the score and started gloating about finally being on par with the amazing Uncle Mike, he said, "Well, then I guess I'd better start playing with my right hand." It turned out he'd been playing left-handed the whole time to make it easier for her. Nobody was more inspiring than Mike. Brother Lance says among his many fond memories, the moment that inspired him to choose ballroom dancing as a career was watching Mike and Tom do a dance exhibition at one of our father's big annual dances. It goes without saying that Mike's dancing skills inspired many women who were lucky enough to get to dance with him over the years. And finally, nobody had more heart than Mike. There were so many dimensions to Mike that revealed his great heart, his kindness, his sense of humor. Mike the storyteller, Army paratrooper, philanthropist, dancer, gymnast, brother, uncle, dad, friend, the one always rooting for the underdog, the person who embraces challenges and accepts winning and defeat with the same grace. So let me tell you about Mike's last ping pong game. During the last month of Mike's life, when I was staying with him in Las Vegas, Mike was watching Ty and me play ping pong. Mike had not yet gone into hospice care, but he was so weak from his illness that he could barely walk. After Ty and I had played a couple of games, Mike announced that he wanted to play. One thing we Sextons don't do is cut each other any slack, so I didn't soft pedal the serve. Bam! He slammed it into the corner of the ping pong table out of my reach. 1-0 Mike. Before I knew it, the score was 4-0 Mike. I managed to get 1 point in before he put the game away at 5-1. At that point, he slumped over the ping pong table, exhausted and breathing heavily. It had taken everything he had to win that game, but he did it. In that moment of competition, I saw the old Mike before me, and it was a wonderful sight. As I helped him get back to his chair, I told him with the sincerest love and appreciation I think I've ever felt, Mike, you are amazing. And I know I speak for the entire Sexton family when I say, Mike, you're the most amazing and wonderful person we will ever have had in our lives.
Hello, everybody. Rustam Sharipov, men's gymnastics head coach at The Ohio State University. And I would like to take a moment and share my experiences with Mike. I know Mike only for 9 years since I accepted the job here at The Ohio State University, but it seems like it's way longer. Mike, a great human being who care a lot about men's gymnastics. He care about the Buckeye football and always been available for us no matter what. Coming with his son Ty and supporting our guys who trying to make the national teams and making world championship team.
My name is Alec Yoder, and I'm standing in front of Cavelli Arena right now, which was given largely in part through people like Mike Sexton. Mike was an amazing person. He gave me this opportunity through his endowed scholarships to come to such an amazing university like Ohio State. He loved the university with everything in him. He was incredibly humble. He was incredibly generous. He was always looking for ways that he could help, and especially with the men's gymnastics program. He was so incredibly humble, you would never know how important he was in the world of poker. He was a pioneer. He was an amazing father, and just what an amazing person to remember, somebody who gave us so much. So we're thinking about Mike. We love him very much, and a lot of gratitude towards him.
We're always going to be grateful for everything what Mike's done for us, and the scholarship what he endowed. It's going to continue to help. Bless Mike. We always going to be with you, and you're always going to be with us.
Thank you, Adam, Jeff, and everyone at Ohio State for your beautiful sentiments, capturing so many different sides of Mike. He was just such a generous man. Now, a significant chapter of Mike's life was his association with Party Poker, and here to represent Party is Neil Barrett.
Hi, I'm Neil Barrett. I met Mike in 2004. I was a newbie in poker, and my first assignment was to go to the Bellagio, the WPT 5 Diamonds. And I met Mike, and he literally couldn't make me feel any more at home as he did within the first few minutes of meeting him. I remember walking through the Bellagio casino and everybody wanted his autograph, and he just stopped and smiled and took photographs. The humility of Mike is something that will live with me forever. His sense of fun, he loved playing golf. We both enjoyed that, so we spent a lot of time on the golf course over the years, and many stories coming out of that, some not all repeatable, but we always had fun. We weren't the best at golf, so we often lost, and I think that was one of the biggest things about Mike. He just said, Neil, it doesn't matter about losing money, it's about making the memories. You can't take your money with you, always enjoy yourself. So I think really Mike, to me, was quite a mentor. He made me realise that you should never get too big for your boots. You should always spend time with people that you love and always enjoy yourself. I think he did that to the full. I'll miss him. The poker industry is a lesser place without him for sure. But I think everybody he touched at Party Poker over the years and WPT all loved him, and I think he'll be greatly missed. So rest in peace, my friend. Hopefully you'll find that golf course with the sports betting zone up in the clouds somewhere, and I'll meet you on the hole 19 at some stage later in the future. See you, mate. Bye.
Hello, each and every one of you wonderful people who are here celebrating this extraordinary man, Mike Sexton. It is so extraordinary to try to capture that guy and understand him that when Linda first told me that Mike wanted me to say something at his celebration of life, I think ever since that moment, I've been racking my brain to try and figure out how you inculcate all of that energy, all of that wonder, and put it into words that somebody can understand. So I've been no good at it at all, because every time I would come up with a direction and I would go, oh, got it, there'd be this voice in my head that would say, now, Steve, what you ought to do is, which was Mike Sexton. Because Mike's the guy who made us better every day. And whether it was exactly right or the most annoying thing in the world, he always managed to make us better. But the thing that I never forget about Mike is that he, unlike so many people, it's just incredibly rare, no matter how big he got, no matter how many people wanted his autograph or how many people recognized Mike on the street. Mike just continued to be a really wonderful man. He continued to be an extraordinary guy. And the characteristic that always touched me over and over and over again was that he would, in every circumstance I saw him in, make sure that everyone around him, all of the people that might not get the recognition, all the people who may not understand how important it was that they were the scaffolding that made all of this possible. He was the guy who every time let people know that. And he would want those people, the people that we're not going to get a chance to hear from today, the people whose names may not be mentioned. He would want Robin Motor. He would want Audrey Kana. He would want Lyle Berman and Cindy Frazier, Mandy, Joe, George, Kedge, Doug Dalton, Jack, Kathy Raymond, all of those people. He would want them to hear just one more time how unbelievably important they were and how none of this could have happened. And the fairy tale life that was Mike Sexton's life, none of that could have happened with all of those extraordinary people banding together to work together, to love each other, and to dare to do the stuff that he got to do with them. So on Mike's behalf, I say that one more time and try not to cry because I'm not supposed to cry, Linda. I know I'm not supposed to cry. So I know we're supposed to tell Mike Sexton stories, and I have too many, so I have no idea where I would start. So I'm not going to, but I am only going to do this. And that is, I'm going to tell you what I imagine. I imagine that right now, Mike Sexton is sitting on the island with Elvis, Tupac, and Ruth Bader Ginsburg. And at this very moment, he is in great detail telling how them, each one, how whatever they're doing right now, they could be doing just a little bit better. We love you, Mike. We're going to miss you forever, baby.
It's an honor to talk about Mike Sexton. He was one of my closest and dearest friends. I've never known a more honorable or personable person. I first met Mike about 40 years or so ago at the golf course. And I had a big money match with Danny Robinson. And Danny and Mike were from the same hometown. And he knew that Danny had just won the state championship in Ohio and had beat a future PGA pro. And he saw me, a 300-pound guy with a big, bad limp, and he thought I had no chance. And he told me, he said he had $3,000 to his name, and he bet it all. And anyway, I beat Danny, and Mike hadn't checked into his hotel yet, and he took his bag and didn't even go to his hotel. He turned around and went back to the airport and flew back to North Carolina. People ask me a lot about what caused the poker boom. And they expect me to say it was the Texas Rounders that brought Hold'em in Las Vegas, or it was Jack and Benny Binion that started the World Series of Poker. But I say it was Mike Sexton. There wasn't any internet poker to amount to anything, and Party Poker signed Mike up, and he went over there and he stayed months in India, I think it was, and he advised them of what to do and how to do it.
That was the beginning of the poker boom, and that made a lot of the poker players rich, except me, because I still have nightmares about the $260 million I turned down for Doyle's room 2 weeks before Black Friday.
Talked to Mike the day before he died. He told me twice, he said, I'm at peace. And he said, I've made peace with my creator. And that meant a lot to me. And I'm sure that God will find a place for Mike, a special place for him. And I hope he rests in peace.
Welcome to the Mike Sexton Roast. I know that most of you have been licking your chops for about a month for this night. You know, and I've heard the murmuring around the room tonight. Let's get that traitor tonight. Well, you're going to get your chance. Now, Gitter told me, he said, Mike, he said, it's going to get bloody tonight. The gloves are going to come off. So let me say this. All the kids need to leave now as well as all the goody two-shoes like Lynn. That's right. If you're sensitive or you're offended easily, hit the road because I don't give a shit. That's right. I'm done with the WPT. I'm out of here, and I don't have to kiss Adam's ass anymore like the rest of you do. Now, what can roasters say about me that's not already public knowledge? I'm old. I'm fat. I'm a degenerate sports bettor. My track record with wives isn't too good. So go ahead, roasters. Give it your best shot. I can take it. Now, I'm sure you all had a lot of laughs tonight, and I hope you do. But when it's all over, remember this. I'll get the last laugh. That's right, me. That's because I'm leaving the WPT to go to a company that's going to pay me enough where I can pay my rent. Enjoy the evening.
Thank you to Doyle Brunson, Steve Lipscomb, and Neil Barrett for sharing your beautiful words. As for Mike's colourful words there in that last piece, I want to apologise to Ty, who is watching. That was from Mike's WPT roast, and it was actually the only bit that we could show, even with the censoring. The rest was worse. As you could imagine, Mike was always a shining star at the WPT roast. I wish we could share some clips from some of the roasts that he delivered, but the one rule is no recording allowed. So Mike would just get up for 5 times as long as any other roaster, and we'd all have sore cheeks by the end of it from laughing so much. But something a little more serious that we do have recorded, though. It was a special dinner that I had with Mike a few years ago, which we actually never released until now. And this was right after Mike announced his departure from WPT. Here's a preview.
I need to call someone.
Yes, we're a couple of winos, but forgive us.
To Mike Sexton. You want to have some dinner?
Let's do it.
Okay.
You know, back in the old days, you had guys like Amarillo Slim and Puggy Pearson. And these kind of characters were actually pool players that had poker games in the back of the pool hall. Genius IQ, photographic memory. He was the Bobby Fischer of poker. It was such a great final table. Maybe to this day, the best final table we've ever had. I literally quit my job, had no paychecks, and literally started playing poker for a living. Actually, Vince and his dad were commentators on the main event of the World Series of Poker back in the 90s. He took it around to all the major studios, said, I've got the newest thing for television, the biggest sport, it's going to be the greatest show ever. It's the World Poker Tour. And all the networks turned him down.
Wow.
And I was so scared that first show that we did at Bellagio. I downed like 6 beers. Steve Lipscomb, selected me to be one of the commentators. And when he did, Lyle Berman, who was funding the World Poker Tour, said, what? Mike Sexton, are you crazy?
What's the worst bad beat you've ever seen? What are you going to miss the most? Tony and Vince, what do you think about that pairing? What do you think about players these days? If you could describe World Poker Tour in one word, what would it be?
People ask me that all the time. That kind of excitement is mesmerizing.
Reality TV at its finest.
That evening was one I'll never forget. Mike talked for hours about his perspective on so many aspects of the game and his time in the poker industry. And we'll be sharing that full conversation online this week. Now, the strongest memory that I will always have of Mike is just the way that Mike made me feel. He made me feel so special. And he had that effect on everyone around him. When I first signed on with the WPT, I was terrified. I couldn't believe I was going to work alongside Mike Sexton and Vince Van Patten, actual legends, right? And when it was all still in the works and it hadn't been announced and I couldn't say anything yet, it was summertime in Vegas and I was walking the hallway of the Rio and I spotted Mike. And I'd only met him a couple of times years prior for quick interviews, so I was thinking to myself, oh, does he know? I'm not supposed to say anything, but is it weird if I don't say anything? And does he even know who I am? Like, all of this was going through my head and I was freaking out as I was approaching him. And he was chatting with some players, as he always did. And when he looked over and spotted me, his face lit up and suddenly said everything in his face. And all my panic just disappeared. We both had company with us, right? So he never said a word about my new role that day, but he didn't have to. He just made me feel so welcome simply with his smile and his hello. In fact, his smile was always so genuine, and there was a little trick behind it that perhaps not everyone knows. So before every final table, we would take pictures with all of the players before cards went in the air. And it's a bit of a tense moment, right? Because many players are nervous and they're playing for huge amounts of money and a WPT title. So it was very quiet. It was tense. And we'd line up like we're taking a school photo with the players seated at the table and the WPT cast lined up behind. And the set would just be so quiet that all you'd hear is the camera clicking away. But then in the quiet, you would notice this subtle sound, just like this. And it would be Mike chuckling to himself like Santa Claus to keep his smile authentic. And he'd do it for the full couple of minutes. And he would never acknowledge that he did it. I think he actually thought that no one could hear him, but the players would all be looking around like, what is that? And so it would have this wonderful, infectious influence over all of us to smile for the picture, especially the nervous final table players. And that wasn't even Mike's intention. He just wanted his smile to be real. But that was such a representation of Mike's influence over others. He always wanted to make a positive influence. But even when he wasn't trying, he just always did. He brightened up everyone's faces, just the same way his face always illuminated. Especially when in a poker room, especially when he'd hit the dance floor, and especially when he spoke of his son Ty. From my very first event onwards, Mike took on the role of Uncle Mike. He was my mentor. The way he always conducted himself with kindness and respect. He took time for everyone and made a point of making people feel welcome. Before every shuffle up and deal, he'd arrive at the poker room early and he'd hover around the entrance to greet as many players as he could. And while doing it, he would make people feel like he'd been standing there for hours waiting just for them, like they'd entered their game. Mike, from wherever it is that you may be listening, it was an honour to know you, to be mentored by you, and to dance with you in this wonderful thing that is life. And in the same way that you danced through your extraordinary life, you will forever dance in our hearts.
Sexton, how you doing, buddy?
Hey, we're doing great, Mike. Happy to be here.
All right.
Everyone out there that's made money in poker would never have made money in poker if it wasn't for Mike Sexton's vision of bringing poker mainstream as he has today.
A complete gentleman, respect it. He has put poker on the map at a different level.
You are the best, one of the greatest ambassadors for poker, that's for sure.
It's really difficult to think of too many more people who've had an impact on our whole community.
Seeing how engaged he was with people who love the game. Oh, this is maybe where the evolution of where I could maybe take poker is to be like Mike.
And he comes to the table and everybody's like, ooh, that's Mike Sexton, ooh, that's Mike Sexton. And I'm thinking to myself, oh, this is awesome. This guy's just going to show the nuts and you're not going to have to worry about anything. And next thing you know, he beats me in a 4-bet pot and shows me the 5-6 of hearts.
And Mike was so funny. And it's almost like he's a ninja. I never saw him enter the pot at all. And then at the end of the show, I think he was one of the biggest winners. And I said, are you coming back tomorrow? And he goes, I don't think so. And then he just scooped up his giant pile and left.
He played probably the highest golf, I guess, that I've ever heard of. We were down 2-1 going into the 17th hole, and I made like a 60-footer. And we won 800 and something thousand. I know Mike remembers it well.
I'm sure he does.
Mike always made you feel like you were important. He made you feel like you were part of the team.
There's nobody who doesn't like you, Mike. In poker, there's not a single person that I talk to who just doesn't have something nice to say about you.
He remembered my name before I was anybody. And when I made my first WPT final table, I was so excited to walk up to him, and he was like elated I was there. He already knew me. And
I'd spent a lot of time at home watching Mike. Dreamed of a day when Mike would commentate on me playing. And there were, so many times where I came close and he was the commentator and he would tell me after, like, don't worry, you're going to do it one day. And it was just so inspiring to have somebody I looked up to truly, genuinely believe in me.
Mike was one of the first poker celebrities I ever met, and he just couldn't have been nicer. And maybe this sounds like BS, but I swear at the time I thought, ever get in a position like that, I want to be like Mike.
He would always tell me, Mike, you're a great player. You're going to come back. You're going to be fine. And it means so much to me.
Some of the best times I had outside of poker with the poker community was with you. Going to dinners and parties and whatnot, you always had the most incredible positive too.
I never saw this guy ever once. I never saw Mike ever once not be kind, cordial, helpful to anybody.
He's one of my best friends. I've spent so many hours with him around the world. The poker boom, without Mike Sexton, it just doesn't exist.
I truly don't think that the players of today really have any grasp or understanding of how much of an effect, more so than any other human being in the entire world, has had on their ability to make a living playing this amazing game. No one has been able to hold themselves to a higher standard consistently for as long as you did. And, it's a testament. The entire poker world loves you.
May all your cards be live and all your pots be monsters. Thank you.
God bless Mike Sexton.
Great job.
Great
job, Mike.
Thanks, Mike Sexton. Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys. Thank you all. Thank you all.
Great job.
Take care.
Great job.
You're welcome. Goodbye.
That montage you just saw was from a tribute that Mike Mattisau held for Mike while in hospice. Mike sat in that Zoom call, and all of those people and many more were speaking directly to Mike, and he loved every minute of it. Thank you so much, Mike Mattisau, for that beautiful tribute. Now, I have Matt Savage here. As I mentioned earlier, Matt is standing by to host the reception later tonight after this ceremony. Matt, are you ready to hear a ton more stories?
I am, Lynn. It's going to be great. There's no doubt that Mike Sexton made an impression on everyone that he met. Mike had a profound impact on me and my career, and the poker world will not be the same without him. Although he's going to be extremely missed, we have definitely shed many tears over the last couple weeks. It was Mike's wish to share stories that not only made you smile, but laugh. And that's why I'm so looking forward to Moments with Mike's reception tonight, immediately following this ceremony. It isn't prepared, it isn't polished, but it wasn't meant to be either. It's going to be family and friends sharing moments with Mike. And while he's no longer here, he will never be forgotten. Please stay for the reception, as many will join me, friends and family, in celebrating the great life of Mike Sexton.
Thanks, Matt. And so once we are finished here, people can join in simply by, if you're watching on YouTube, Twitch, or Facebook, it will be shown here on the same channel. Thanks, Matt.
Thanks, Lynn.
Now, up next, we're going to hear from more of Mike's dearest friends, starting with a video from Richie Sklar.
Hi, my name is Richie Sklar, and I'm in my house to tell you a little bit about Mike and I together in this house. And I hope you enjoy it and can visualize what I'm saying. This is the couch that me and Mike used to sit on Saturdays and Sundays, watching these 4 TVs, sweating all the games, Mike yelling and screaming at the coaches that what morons they are. And we'd go over here, and he loved the Colonel, Kentucky Chicken, so we'd sit right here and take time out or eat the Colonel or McDonald's, and we'd have only one TV then. And I made this for Mike. Mike stayed here for about 6 months when he sold his house, and he was waiting for a house to become open in his son Ty's neighborhood. So Mike used to do all of his work here. This was his desk. He had his computer, all his World Poker Tour stuff, mail, everything he needed, just like his own desk. So I put this Ohio State shirt, party poker hat, Ohio State hat up. That's the seat he used to sit in all the time. And I'll leave it there forever. And then every once in a while he would spoil me and come in this room here and play a few songs on the piano. He didn't play many, but a few he would play, and it was fun listening to him. And then we have this magazine here and this article that was in the magazine that was read on the last tribute to Mike. That was from 2006. I used to cook many things in here for him. He loved everything I made. Really, I knew what he liked, so it was easy. But this, I see every day I wake up. I get to see this and remember my friend Mike sitting here at his desk doing his work for the World Poker Tour and for Party Poker. I could go on and on and on. Well, I'll tell one story. We were sitting here watching the games one day, and then I got up from there. Mike was sitting right there. I got up and stepped about this far away, and I said, Mike, he was staying here for about 4 months at the time, and the house was about to come soon. He was hoping, so he could move around the corner from his son Ty. And I said, by the way, Mike, how much longer do you plan on staying here? It was about 4 months. He said, why, did you want me to leave soon, right away? I said, well, let me think about it. I took 2 more steps. I turned around and I said, oh, yeah. Yeah, you know when you can leave? Never. That's what my answer was. You get to stay here forever. Ever. Free. 0 bills, 0 rent, 0 everything. Forever. And I'll never forget saying that to him. We both cracked up. He loved it. We cracked up. And then I went over here and made some food, and that's that. Every morning I come down and say hello to Mike. I love Mike Sexton. Mike Sexton believed in my golf game in the start of 2006, and he brought me up to Vegas. And he put up a lot of money for me for 1.5 years. And we did really, really well. And because of Mike Sexton, I'm blessed to earn the money in golf. And then I was blessed to buy this beautiful home. Thank you, Mike Sexton. I love you.
Hello, my name is Linda Johnson, and I'm honored to talk to you today about my very awesome Mike Sexton, a man who is loved and respected worldwide. I met Mike in the early 80s when we were both professional poker players. Over the past 40 years, it's been a pleasure to spend so much time with him, both on and off the felt. As Mike's health declined, I was grateful to be one of his few frequent visitors. Mike fought very hard to beat cancer. When it became obvious that the cancer was winning the battle, Mike was realistic about his fate, and he had no fear. One day he said to me, "You know, Linda, if when I was in my 20s, someone had given me the choice between living a great, exciting life and getting to do everything I wanted to do, but I'd have to die at the age of 72, or I could live an average life, but I could live to be 100, I would have said, where can I sign up to live the exciting life?" Well, Mike certainly had lots of excitement and memorable moments in his lifetime. Mike made his wishes very clear regarding the celebration of life. He wanted it to be a happy occasion, with some of his friends sharing funny stories, and he wanted laughter, not tears. I promised him there would be lots of stories, but that happy tears would probably flow. Mike's family and I are so grateful for the WPT. They stepped up big time to produce Mike's celebration of life and make it just the way he wanted it to be. So with Mike's wishes in mind, I'd like to share some of my favorite stories that will illustrate the many facets of Mike Sexton. As others have said, Mike was the best storyteller in the world. On most of our recent visits, Jan Fisher and I would bring him photos of players from the old days. We'd hand him the photo, he'd look at it, and then he would tell an interesting story about the person in the photo. For example, maybe I'd hand him a picture of John Bonetti, and he'd look at it and say, "You know, Linda, John Bonetti was the only guy to ever get a penalty while he was on break for saying the F word." And then we'd share a laugh and then hand him another photo, and we'd get to hear another entertaining story. His mind was so sharp, and his brain was packed with so many wonderful memories from the good old days. One of my favorite stories involved Mike and Puggy Pearson back in the 80s. Backgammon was the craze, and high-limit players loved to play the game for pretty big stakes. So one night, Puggy and Mike agreed to meet at a bar and play some backgammon. Well, Puggy started off winning, and he was quickly up $500. And then he said, "You know, Sexton, why don't we settle up every time we get to 500? And Mike said, "Ah, Puggy, you know I'm good for it. Let's just keep playing." And Puggy said, "No, Mike, I really think we should settle up every time one of us gets to 500, and then we can start again at 0. So at that time, Mike had to sheepishly confess to Puggy that he hadn't brought any money with him because he had expected to win. Puggy said, "You have no money?" And he stared at Mike for what Mike said seemed like an eternity, and Puggy didn't say a word. And then all of a sudden, he burst into laughter. And Mike said, "What's so funny?" And Puggy then admitted that he hadn't brought any money with him either. I love that story. Mike was a player's player. He's always nice to other players and tourists. He took his beats well, and he never ever blamed the dealer. One day, after taking a really brutal beat, someone asked him why he never threw the cards at the dealer like so many pro players used to do. And I say used to do. He replied, "Well, I look at the dealer the same way I look at the mailman. Sometimes the mailman brings you checks, and sometimes he brings you bills. Can you imagine greeting the mailman at the door and then throwing the bills back at him?" Well, that's a great analogy, Mike, and that's one I've used over the years with students and tried to use it for myself too. Mike was a great problem solver. On the first night of one of the Party Poker Million cruises, Mike and I were called upon to settle an argument between two young male roommates. When we got to their cabin, we asked them what the problem was. One of the roommates, named John, told us that he had hidden his friend's luggage. Obviously, we were curious about this, and so we asked John why he had hidden his roommate's luggage. And just so you know, a little background is that Card Player Cruises chartered the entire cruise ship several times to host the Party Poker Million. And when you charter the whole cruise ship, you buy every cabin on the ship. There's usually a few smaller ship cabins that have bunk beds in them. And knowing that, we had offered a $200 credit to anyone who would volunteer to take one of the bunk bed cabins. Well, John told us that he had won the cabin online, and he had indeed taken the downgrade money for the bunk bed cabin. But after getting to his cabin, he realized that there would be a problem, and that was that he wouldn't be able to sleep if there was anyone in the bunk bed above him. So his solution was to hide his roommate's luggage and hope that his roommate would find somewhere else to sleep. Mike looked at John and said very matter-of-factly, "Well, John, would it work if you slept in the top bunk?" John looked at Mike and said, "Dude, that would totally work." Yes, Mike was brilliant at solving tough problems. As many of you know, Mike liked action and he would bet on anything. My favorite Mike Sexton gambling story involved Bonnie Damiano, Jan Fisher, and me. The year was 1998. Eric Seidel had offered up a $5,000 bet on whether or not the four of us could pick the winner of the World Series main event that year. And these were the terms Eric chose. Eric would get to pick who he deemed were the 10 best no-limit players in the world, and they would be excluded from either side. So in other words, if one of those 10 won, the bet would be a push. We would then get to pick the next 60 players, and Eric would get the field. If one of our 60 players won, we won $5,000. If not, Eric won the money. Well, Bonnie, Jan, Mike, and I met every day to work on our list, and our list changed frequently. Mike was the one on our team with the best knowledge of the players, so we deferred to him. Our list changed often. Mike would say, "Well, player A is doing drugs. Let's take him off the list. Player B's on a rush. He's got all the confidence in the world. Let's add him to the list. Player C's getting divorced. Take him off the list." Well, on the morning of the main event, we turned in our list of 60 names to Eric, and we were quite distraught as the entries kept going up and up and up. They increased a lot from the previous year. It ended up that there were 350 entrants in the main event in 1998. And that meant that Eric, after he excluded his 10 players, we would have 60 players and he would have 280 players. So we weren't too thrilled about the odds. But as it turns out, Mike had done such a great job of handicapping that once it got down to the final table, we didn't think we could lose. In that particular year, Scotty Wynn had busted 2 players in the same hand. So instead of 6 players going into the final day for the taping, there were only 5. One of them, TJ Cloutier, was on Eric's excluded list, so if he won, it would be a push. We had 3 out of the other 4 players on our list. We had Scotty Wynn, we had Dewey William, and we had Lee Salem. Now that was great handicapping by Mike, because back in 1998, almost no one would have picked those 3 players. Scotty Wynn wasn't even famous back then, and he'd never even won a major tournament, but Mike knew he had talent. Once it got down to the final 5, our only spoiler, the only way we could lose, was if Kevin McBride won. Kevin was an unknown player, and it was his first trek to the World Series, so there's no way we could have had him on our list. Mike, Jan, and I watched the final table on a 6-inch screen behind a production curtain. When Scotty pushed all in on the final hand and said his famous line, "You call this and it's all over, baby," you should have seen us. We knew we were going to win the bet, and we were jumping up and down and high-fiving each other. $5,000 meant to the world to us. To this day, that still is the most exciting and fun bet we've ever made, and I thank Mike for the win. Mike was one of the most generous people I've ever known. He supported lots of charities in a big way. I remember one time he chartered a private jet for a 24-hour turnaround so that 6 of us could fly to Washington, D.C. to host a fundraiser for the Paralyzed Veterans of America. Mike did love our veterans and was proud to be one. When Mike won the $1 million in the 2006 WSOP Tournament of Champions, he donated half the money. That's right, he donated $100,000 to each of 5 different charities. About 10 years ago, Mike, Jan Fisher, Lisa Tenner, and I started a 501c3 charity called Poker Gives as a way for poker players in the poker industry to give back to worthwhile charities. Mike hoped to see the day come that players would donate 1% of their winnings to charity. Mike was so generous. He was always the first one to step up to help a player who was down on his luck. He would always pick up the check. He would buy anyone a meal. The world would be a better place if we were all more like Mike. I hope my stories today have given you a better glimpse into the man who Mike was. I have lots of stories to share in the Memories with Mike segment following the celebration of life. And I look forward to hearing your stories too. In closing, thanks for all the memories, Mike. There is no poker player I respect more than you. I'm glad that you got to have such a wonderful life with so many adventures. I will be forever grateful to have been part of your journey, and I thank you for all the dances. I'm so proud of you, and I will always love you. And I know today you're looking down, proud of me that I made it through without tears. Rest in peace, my dear friend.
Are we really gonna do this?
Oh, we gotta do it. Pick it up. Look. 1, 2, 3! It's a slump. It's the worst thing. Let's just wrap this. Let's exercise.
I got a better idea.
What?
I'll show you on the rock.
All right.
What do you say, Rock?
Rocky. Yeah. Yeah. Yo. Come on, Mike. Go! Hit! Come on. This is it, Mike.
I'm an old man.
Yeah. All right, I'm gonna give you 20 seconds to the top. You ready?
For 100, you got a bet.
All right, go, sir. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 20. I'm going. Good luck. Yeah! That's the workout. That's it. We did it. Yo, Andrew! Oh, hi, everybody. Okay. Mike Sexton, we all know, was just an amazing person and a fun person. But I just want to say this was his birthday, and he did say one of his last wishes was, just be happy, celebrate. And that's the kind of guy he was. I got his father, he is, I know you're watching this, and what a man your father was. And he idolized you and loved you so much. And Karen, his ex, I mean, you guys did everything together. And he's not forgotten. He'll be around in all of our minds and souls. So the entire Sexton family, my thoughts are going with you. I know what a great, great person this was. But I want to keep it light, like Mike would want us to do. I'll tell you a couple quick stories, and we'll go from there. But I knew Mike now for early 90s. We got to know each other. Then we do the World Poker Tour, and he was just a fun guy. I'll tell you some stories because over the years, people say, well, tell us a funny story. Well, okay. Well, we would film a show late into the night. We would start at 3 o'clock in the afternoon, the final table of the World Poker Tour. And then around 11 or 12, sometimes there was 4 players left. And it was very boring, and we'd be so tired. Mike would do all the talking, That was the good thing about Mike, was that he would just, well, what a shot. And I'd be like sleeping on the side. And that was fine with me. But we'd get punchy. And late in the night, 12, 1 o'clock, 2 o'clock, and the sense of humor he had, he'd be so bored and so tired, he'd look over at me and he would just start laughing. And I would look at him and we'd both just start laughing. We had laughing fits. We wouldn't even know what we were laughing about, but we had those kind of laughing fits. So that was fun. Another thing is we did another thing at the studio. We would have ADR, and that's when you do studio work like 3 weeks later. And in the studio work, we would have to get there at 8 o'clock in the morning. But at the time, Mike and I were playing in huge cash games in Beverly Hills. And we would play to sometimes 6, 7 o'clock in the morning. And we'd look at each other and we'd be stuck a lot of money or winning a lot of money. We'd say, hey, we got to go to ADR in about an hour. So we'd both go over in the same car and we went to this little studio to do ADR work for 12 hours, and we'd both be so tired. But all I remember, Mike was such a trooper. He had such great. But what would Mike do? He'd pop open a Coca-Cola at 8 o'clock in the morning. I'd say, Mike, what are you doing? You having a Coke? He goes, yeah, Vance, I have to have a Coke. I said, you have your coffee, I'll have my Coke. I said, okay, Mike. He'd have about 4 Cokes in the morning to get himself through it. And he was great. And there were some times at those ADR sections that I would literally see him, and they were very important sessions, but I would literally see him snoozing. He'd be snoozing. And I'd poke him. I'd say, Mike, wake up. He goes, oh, yeah, right, Vance. Bingo, bango, bongo. Look at that. That was a fantastic play. And then sometimes I'd be sleeping and he'd be poking me. So we had many, many laughs. The guy had just an extraordinary sense of humor, like a gentleman at the table. Never heard him ever get mad at the table. A true professional. And there's another story I want to tell you quickly about when we would, after the show was over, no matter what city, we both loved steak. We loved great steakhouses and things like that. So we'd go to the best steakhouse after just me and him. Lance, what steakhouse should we go to now? Oh, let's go to this one, Mike. So I'd go, and I'd always order a nice ribeye. It was fantastic. We would talk and gossip a little bit about poker and the players and what's going on in life. He was a great conversationalist. And I'd get my ribeye, and then he would say to the waiter, he'd say, sir, what would you like? He'd go, well, that's what he was famous for. He must have heard it somewhere. Someone told him to get this. He goes, I'll take a filet mignon, well done, butterflied, and lots of ketchup on the side. Shh, don't tell the chef. And I'd look at him and go, oh, no, that's a shrinky thing. That's just bad. But he just wanted his ketchup on the best steaks across the country. So that was a little bit of Mike. He loved his steaks with ketchup. And then we all know that Mike, best man, no doubt. Forget Tony Dunst and all this. Mike was great, but he wasn't always great. It happened in the first season on the World Poker Tour. Yeah, 2002, we do the show. After 2 or 3 shows, we're a big hit. Mike says, Lance, man, this is so much fun. He goes, but my wardrobe don't look too good. I said, oh, you look great, Mike. He goes, well, I got to get a good wardrobe. I said, well, don't ask me. And he goes, well, anyway, long story short, he goes to, I guess, the old timers, Binion or Doyle, and they give him a tip to go to Dallas, Texas, to get the best tailored suit so he can look great. And he went to a place called Lombardo Custom Apparel, and it's Jay Lombardo, right? He comes back two weeks later. Mike is looking amazing. He has 14 beautiful suits, custom suits, and he has 15 shirts, beautiful ties. So he became the best dressed man. I mean, I could never compete with him for years. He always looked so good. But here's the thing. About 4 years ago, we're at Choctaw, Oklahoma, a great tournament. And we're at Choctaw. And we at Choctaw because we'd like to drive to a steakhouse, 3 Forks down in Dallas. So we'd sneak away 3 times during the week to 3 Forks down in Dallas. Vance, let's go to that steakhouse. Let's go down there. Okay. So I rented a car and we'd be driving. And one night we're driving down and Mike's on the phone. He's going, oh, here we go. Okay, well, I can't, I'm sorry. Hangs up. He goes, oh, damn. I go, what, Mike? He goes, oh, man. He goes, that Jay Lombardo is a nice guy. I got all my apparel. Cost me $60,000. He goes, but I'm running a little bad right now. And he wants me to buy some more clothes in Dallas. I just don't want to do it. I said, well, don't do it. Because that's what I told him. I told him I was sick. I told him I was sick. He knows I'm up here. I go, oh, no problem. So we drive, nothing about that. We drive to the steakhouse, 3 Forks, driving up in the parking lot. And all of a sudden, I'm just about to park at 3 Forks, and Mike goes, Vance, oh my God, no. Oh, no, my God. He goes, what are we doing? That's Jay Lombardo. I go, what? He goes, yeah, you parked right in front of his custom apparel shop. I said, what? He goes, what should I do? I told him I was sick. What should I do? I said, well, get down. He goes, oh, okay. So Mike Sexton gets down in the front seat. He's crouched down, big Mike in the front seat. And he goes, Vance, he can't see me. He'll know I'm lying. I go, okay. All of a sudden, swear to God, Jay Lombardo comes out. This guy, hey, I know you are you Van Patten, Vince? You're Mike Sexton's partner. So I kind of roll down the window. I'm trying to roll away, but I can't quite get away. I wave. I go, yeah. He goes, oh, slow down. He goes, Mike is supposed to come down here for more apparel. He goes, he's very sick. Have you seen him in the last few hours? I said, have I seen him? I said, no, I haven't seen Mike. He goes, Lance, please, Lance, he can't see me. Drive away. So I go, no. He goes, well, what are you doing here by yourself? I said, I'm going to I'm going to the steakhouse. He goes, oh, really? He goes, why don't you come into the shop? I'll show you some stuff. He goes, you could be looking good like Mike. I said, not now. He goes, oh, okay. He goes, well, maybe I'll go in there and have a drink with you. I said, no, it's okay. Thank you very much, though. He goes, okay, as you see Mike, you tell him, I want him back here. I need he's fantastic. I said, okay, I'll tell him. And I got away. We drove out to the back, and Mike was, oh, man, Vance, I can't believe it. He goes, hey, forget the steakhouse. He might see us. He goes, let's just go to McDonald's. And we drove off to McDonald's. That was it. So that's one of the funny things about Mike. He was so well dressed, and he was always fun there was always a story. Incredible. And I have 50 more stories. I won't tell them right now. We're going to move on to something that Karen, his ex-wife, who was so close to Mike and Ty, they want me to say before we show this video. So I'll read it off, and then you'll see this lovely thing. But God bless Mike. We love him so much, and such a great person. And this is from Karen and Ty before you see the beautiful video coming up. Ty and I, family, wish to thank the WPT family for honoring Mike on his birthday. Mike would have been 73 today. Our hearts have a tremendous void of Mike not being here with us has not sunk in. We are so grateful to all that have sent their love and support. It means so much to us. We hope all the viewers and fans will enjoy a more personal look into the life of Mike Sexton. The Mike Sexton away from the felt and being a wonderful father and family man. One of Ty's most favorite Halloweens was when Daddy dressed up as the Hulk. Keep an eye out when you see this video. And the Cub Scout Pinewood Derby photo is John and Ellen. They're neighbors. John is one of Mike's closest friends, spending so many mornings at the park watching a dog, Jake, catch frisbees as they all visited. John is a poker player as well. Jake's best friend, our rock, and one of the best human beings Mike and I know. John is responsible for making this beautiful slideshow. Mike was undeniably the ambassador of poker, a visionary, and did so much for the game of poker. But as accomplished as Mike was in his professional life, we believe he was even a better father and family man. We love you, Mike and Daddy. And now we'll see the video. Enjoy.
Walking down the avenue where we used to play. The house on the corner is still the same today as it was when we were children, innocent as innocent can be. Those were the times. Those were the ways. So take me back. So take me back to the good old days. Looking back from here, I can see that we were blind to the burdens we would shoulder and the struggles we would find. But growing made us strong as strong can be. Those were the times. Those were the ways. So take me back. So take me back to the good old days. Ice cream until our heads hurt. We were trading candy bars and sticks of bubble gum, trying not to laugh in church. Do you remember? Like I remember. And oh, those were the times. Ooh, those were the ways. Oh, so take me back. Take me back. Oh, those were the times. I wish we could have stayed. Take me back.
Thank you, Richie, Linda, and Vince, for your beautiful stories. And we know so many of Mike's achievements, but his greatest role was absolutely being a father. Thank you, Karen and Ty, for sharing these personal memories with us. Whenever Mike spoke of his son Ty, his eyes would well up with tears from overwhelm of the love that he had for him. Ty, you are so loved. Now, a lot of people have been asking what they can do, and Mike, being such a generous man, was the co-founder of pokergives.org. And if you would like to make a contribution there, his family would be very grateful. This is an all-volunteer organisation with 100% of donations and supplies donated going to people in need. It started that way, and it remains that way today. That's pokergives.org. And there'll also be an auction with a lot of Mike's memorabilia in a couple of weeks, with all donations going to pokergives.org. So Linda Johnson will be sharing more of that information soon. Thank you to everyone who spoke tonight, and to all of you for joining us for this birthday celebration of life for Mike Sexton, but it is not over yet. In fact, the storytelling has only just begun. You're all now invited to join Matt Savage to continue sharing stories. So if you're watching this on Facebook, YouTube, or Twitch, stay right where you are, as this feed will return here in just a minute. Thank you again. And like Linda so beautifully said, the world would be a better place if we were all more like Mike. Thank you, Mike. Good night.
Let's rock and roll here. And as we say on the World Poker Tour, may all your cards be live and your pots be monsters. Good luck. That's perfect. That is perfect.